My name's Seren. I'm a fourth year medical student at Peninsula Medical School. I'm tangled up in the microphone lead. There we go. Thank you. First trick. And I'm here to make you laugh. But yeah, less about my anatomy knowledge. As you can tell, I've got a bit of an inferiority complex. It's not a very good one though. And I'm wearing completely the wrong mascara. I've put my cheap mascara on. It's really bad. Yeah, blink and you mess it. I've just got to apologise, I'm not really used to using a microphone. I have been practicing with this. You've got to tell me if I'm too loud or too quiet. I have been practicing in my bedroom with a wine bottle. That is how I practice for most things these days, but still. So, as I said, I'm a medical student. When I first went to my mum and I told her, "Mum, I want to be a doctor when I grow up," and she said, "You'll never make it, you'll never be a doctor." And the reason she didn't think I'd ever become a doctor was because she didn't think that I washed my hands enough. Well, it is a very important thing when you're a doctor to, you know, be hygienic. But I think she was being a bit unfair because I was only 4 years old at the time. I couldn't really reach the sink. But I completely ignored her. I didn't really listen to her because here I am, I'm a medical student. But I've never really been a big one for listening to either of my parents, to be totally honest. My dad rang me up the other day. He sounded quite excited. He was telling me he was watching Art Attack or something. Anyway, I haven't heard from him since. When I first went to medical school, I didn't know very much medicine first year, and I thought that a caesarean section was a neighbourhood in Rome, and I thought that a seizure was one of their emperors. In my first lecture, the doctor said that we were going to have to dilate, and I thought, good job, don't want to have to die early. I used to think that the symptoms were a yellow cartoon family, and my first patient, he told me he was impotent, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we're all equal in the NHS." How naive was I? So yes, I've learnt a lot since I've been at medical school. In fact, only the other day I learned something very interesting. I learned what causes cancer. What causes cancer is something called mutagenesis, which is a funny word, isn't it? Mutagenesis. Well, I only think it's a funny word really because I always thought that mutagenesis just meant switching off Peter Gabriel. Learned something else quite good the other day in a public health lecture, which is a really weird place to learn something interesting, I know. I learned that Wi-Fi laptops can actually damage your sperm, but not as much as sperm damages a Wi-Fi laptop, I don't think. Well, me and my laptop, we've got quite an intimate relationship, I think. In fact, only the other day we were having some together time in my bedroom. I was sort of surfing the deeper, darker, dirtier reaches of the internet, and suddenly this woman popped up. "Meet local girls in your area." I know, we've all been there, it's dead annoying. I said, "Get out of my room, mother." But after a while, after you've been at medicine for a while, it does kind of get into every aspect of your life. I was watching Doctor Who the other day, and it struck me that the opening credits to Doctor Who, I'm sure you've all seen them, the opening credits to Doctor Who, they just look like a terrible colonoscopy. It's true. And next time you see them, I'm sure that will be in your mind. But speaking of colonoscopies, I must tell you about a gentleman that I met, a patient that I met the other day. I won't mention any names or anything, I don't want to breach confidentiality. He came in, he said, "Oh." I said, sit down, tell me about the pain, what's it like, where does it move to, how severe is it, have you eaten anything different recently, have you been to any different restaurants recently? Checked him over, examined him, you know, poked him, prodded him. Did that bit. Anyway, while I was doing that bit, with gloves on of course, while I was doing that bit, I felt something which wasn't entirely normal. And yes, from his anal passage, I extracted, you're not going to believe this, or two, a souvenir statue of Nelson's column. I said, sir, I think I found a cause for your abdominal pain. He said, oh no, that's Nelson. He lives up there. I was speechless. He took the statue back off me, shoved it right on back up his ass. That's not a word of a lie, honest. I still can't believe that happened. And some people are weird. I never understood anal sex. I did get it in the end. And it brought me to the conclusion that having a frog in your throat is quite uncomfortable, but not as uncomfortable as a toad in the hole. And it's like a nurse said to me the other day. She said to me, so what's 18 inches long and hangs in front of an arsehole? A stethoscope. Which I thought was a bit harsh, but actually, you know, I sort of thought about it, and as in many walks of life, there are many decent doctors, but some are just complete arseholes. Case in point, I went to a GP surgery on placement the other day, and he asked his assistant to go out on her lunch break to buy him a fancy dress costume for a party he was going to that night, to give up her lunch break, go shopping for him. Anyway, she came back, she said, I'm really sorry, I haven't been able to find the Gandalf costume that you sent me shopping for, but I've looked around and I've managed to get you this big pointy hat, and I've got you this long fake beard, and I've got you these sort of flowing grey robes. He wasn't having it though. He sort of looked at me and he sighed and he just can't get the staff. That was a bit of a geeky joke. It's fine. Actually, yeah, so that GP, he wasn't very nice to his assistant, but he was quite nice to me, and he let me see some patients and run a few clinics on my own. And I'll tell you a bit about the clinics, because, yeah, they were quite fun. One of the patients I saw, he came in, he was in a terrible state. He said, I wake up every morning, I'm just having this terrible problem. I wake up every morning, and for some reason, I don't know why, I'm just convinced that I'm a TP. Convinced that I'm a TP, and I get out of bed and suddenly everything switches around, everything changes for me, and I'm just sure, I become sure that I'm a wigwam. You know, and I try and get on with my day, but sure enough, everything changes around again, and I just become convinced again that I'm a TP, and it just carries on like that. It changes, and I'm a wigwam, and then it switches around, I'm a TP, I'm a wigwam, a TP, wigwam, a TP, wigwam. You know, and he stood there doing that. I said, it's okay, just calm down, just sit down, put your feet up, relax. You're just too tense. Yeah, that was a long one. Just you wait till you hear about this chap though. The next chap, we thought that was funny. The next chap came in. He was a farmer, and this is where everything falls apart, because I'm going to try and do a farmer's accent. He said, "Doctor, I'm having this terrible trouble. Every time I harvest my corn, I get this terrible headache. Doctor, what can I do?" And I said, "Oh, it's a migraine." And he looked at me and he said, "No, doctor, it's migraine. And what's with that terrible Italian accent you're putting on?" So yeah, that was a good placement. And towards the end of the week, I was due to get some teaching in a very important skill for doctors to learn, which is to break bad news to patients gently and politely. And it's a difficult thing to do, but it's a very important skill to learn. And actually, it went quite well. I spoke to this patient, and I thought it was going quite well. That was until the GP came back into the room, and he came back just as I was letting the patient just doodle all over my upper arms and just across my back, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, I've read the textbooks and I know how to do this, and I know the process, and I know that at this stage all the patient needs is a shoulder to crayon." So as you can tell, that one of the absolute best things about studying medicine is meeting the patients, you know, because they're so fantastic, and it's great to meet so many interesting people and get this insight into their lives. And I'll tell you about a couple of my favourite patients that I've ever met that I'll never forget. I met this one lady when I was working on the respiratory ward in the hospital, and the consultant asked me to examine her, and I think he chose her She was quite an elderly lady. I think he chose her really to flummox me. She had this snowy white hair. She was going pretty deaf. Everything was kind of a bit lower than it was. Anyway, I put my stethoscope on her chest and I said, "Okay, big breaths." And she said, "Oh, they used to be." And the other chap that I'll never forget meeting, we were talking away, and I said, "Okay, sir, so what's your occupation?" And he told me that he used to be a big rock star in the 80s, and I didn't really believe him, but he was adamant. And my next question to him was, "Are you an organ donor?" And he said, "Oh, no. But I did give an old piano to the Salvation Army." And so I examined him and checked him over, and nothing was really jumping out at me. But I was picking up a few signs, and I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't find cause for your complaint. But frankly, I think that's due to drink." And he said, "Oh, fine, got ya, I'll come back when you're sober, it's fine." And one of the things I had noticed is that he had this real proper alcoholic shake going on in his hands, and I said, "Sir, do you drink a lot?" And he said, "Oh no, to be honest now, I do spill most of it." So yeah, a lot of our medical course is about doing placements and about meeting patients and watching the doctors and nurses and what goes on in the hospital. But another big bit's coming up that we're planning at the moment, which is our medical electives, which is doing exactly the same thing, but in another country, really. So we're not like the fashion students who spend their gap year in Next and the next year in Gap. And, yeah. And I was talking to a friend who's just got back off his elective. He did a research elective, and he did a study on the effect of cannabis on seabirds. As you do. And he went off to this remote island and he collected all his data and drew up all these graphs and wrote up his report, submitted it to the research committee. And they said, "Oh, wow, this is great. We can see you've worked really, really hard on this. And no one's ever looked into the effect of cannabis on seabirds before." Why would you? But there is one problem. And he said, "Oh, no, what's the problem?" And they said, "Well, you've forgotten to include a control group." And he said, "Oh, no, you mean?" And they said, "Yes. Unfortunately, you left no turn unstoned." I was thinking the other day, if an ambulance is patient transport, does that mean that a white van is inpatient transport? No? Right, fine, it doesn't. That's okay, try this one then, try this one. What is long and thin and sits at the end of your bed taking the piss out of you? A catheter. And speaking of taking the piss, right, urologists, okay? Urologists and neurologists. It's ridiculous. You've just got to be really careful because they sound so similar. They do completely different things. Neurologists study the nerves in your spine and they study the nerves in your head, and urologists, they study the nerves in your bladder and the nerves in your other head. So you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to say neurologists and really go for the neuro, and then you end up looking like you've got something wrong with the nerves in your head. And the other one you've got to watch out for as well is hematologists. Hematologists and neurologists, because hematologists, they study your blood. And so a hematologist will come along and prick your finger, but a urologist will come along and finger your prick. And speaking of jobs, I read the other day that every time a new McDonald's restaurant opens, it creates 40 new jobs. And I thought, yes, that's probably right. 20 dentists, 20 heart surgeons. Yeah, adds up, adds up. And I've forgotten what I was about to say. Oh yes, another specialty that I have a bit of a problem with is pathologists. I guess most of you here must have seen pathology dramas. Silent Witness, Bones, CSI, that sort of thing on the TV. They're pretty good fun to watch, aren't they? You know, the pathologist is there at the scene of the crime, collecting the evidence, running off after the murderer, catching the criminal, saving the day. Heroes, pathologist heroes. Have you ever met a pathologist? pathologist, we have lectures with pathologists, and this is what happens. They come shuffling out, blinking into the sunlight. Their skin is all pale from lack of sun, and they're all hunched over. They've got hunchbacks from bending over their microscopes all day, and they have absolutely zero social skills because they're more used to communicating with bacteria than people. It's not like it is on TV. And actually, somebody who really likes pathology, pathologist dramas, sorry, who really used to like them, is my granny, and we used to watch them together. And I say used to, don't worry, she's not dead or anything. We don't really talk anymore. Something happened a couple of years ago, which kind of upset our relationship. And I would like to tell you about it, if that's okay, if Chris can sort out the sound, because I'm actually going to sing about it. So get your earphones. It was Monday morning, around 8 o'clock, as Granny lay in bed. She blinked her wrinkled eyes as the cockerel crowed, and shook her blue-rinsed head. Her eyesight wasn't what it used to be, and her memory's a fog. So she forgot to put her glasses on, and she didn't see the dog when Nan fell over. Yeah, she trudged a trembling arm when Nan fell over. Yeah, to press her care along. We rushed to hospital to be by her side, found her dancing round her bed. She'd been hooked up on a morphine drip, she was off her head. When the good doctor finally came to discuss ongoing care, we found out Granny had a fractured hip, but there were no replacements spare when Nan fell over. Yeah, they tried a new technique when Nan fell over. Yeah, but the treatment was unique. The surgeon who then did the op installed a new invention. My gran now has bionic legs which defy all comprehension. And now you just wouldn't recognise my gran. That was how her career in the mafia began. So now she runs a shady pizzeria. You can see all the mob there, queuing up to see her. When they need to make someone disappear, she says, make me an offer, 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 you can't refuse. That was when Nan fell over. Yeah, way back 3 years ago. That was when Nan fell over. Yeah, and now her mafia empire grows. Thank you. Sorry for deafening you with that one. Yeah, you're gonna be rid of me in just 2 seconds. I'm gonna leave you with 2 facts though, just to finish the night off. Okay, so fun scientific fact 1 is that pig orgasms last for 30 minutes, which just brings up a really, really horrible mental image. So swiftly on to fun fact number 2, which is banging your head against a brick wall actually burns 150 calories an hour. But I've burnt at least 600 calories doing that so far, and I've still got pigs having sex in my head. So I hope you guys get on a bit better with that one. Thank you very much, guys. Good night.